Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into a world you've probably brushed past without ever realizing, an existence hidden behind discreet doors and silent elevators. You glide across glossy marble lobbies where no one asks questions about the woman in the oversized sunglasses waiting for a man twice her age. The walls are lined with velvet, the closets glimmer with designer handbags, and somewhere in this hushed sanctuary, a phone vibrates with a wire transfer notification big enough to pay your rent for a year. You probably won't survive this level of surreal luxury without a tiny involuntary shudder. So, before we drift any deeper, if this hushed little corner brings you even a flicker of calm, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right in your chest. Tell me where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, breathe slow, let the weight fall off your shoulders, and sink with me into tonight's slow unraveling of the past. Right here on Historian's Diary, you slip into the first of many velvet cages, where everything looks so perfect you almost forget to wonder who paid the decorator. The woman whose slippers rest by the cream sofa doesn't technically live here, she's kept here. You tiptoe through rooms fragrant with peonies, careful not to smudge the spotless surfaces. The lighting is soft, the air cool and quiet, but it's hard not to feel the tension coiled in the corners, like an expensive cat ready to pounce. Here, concubinage has evolved. Once concubines were named in ledgers, paraded in brocade robes through palace courtyards, assigned a rank, a stipend, a carefully measured ration of dignity. Now, the arrangement is more discreet, more plausible to deny. She's not your concubine, she's your friend, your assistant, maybe your creative partner. It's all coded language, elaborate euphemisms that make the transaction sound almost respectable. In the 21st century, these velvet cages can look like anything: a minimalist penthouse in Singapore, a townhouse in London, a secluded villa in Beverly Hills. Each one is a secret kingdom, furnished with the same careful logic. If you surround someone with beauty, it will soothe their restlessness, but you sense the restlessness anyway. It hovers, a thin mist over the cashmere throws and scented candles. Some women step willingly into this world, drawn by the promise of protection, status, or a taste of luxury they could never touch alone. Others stumble into it by accident, realizing too late that a romance has become a negotiation. One day you're flattered by the gifts, the attention, the sense of being chosen. The next you discover you've been assigned a role you never auditioned for. You cross to the window, pressing your hand to the glass. The city sprawls in all directions, its lights blinking like indifferent stars. No one down there can see you. You are above it all, literally and figuratively, and yet you've never felt so enclosed. Remember that time in ancient Rome when wealthy patricians kept concubines in secluded villas on the outskirts of the city? Their existence was technically legal, but socially ambiguous. They were never fully wives, never fully free. History has a way of repeating itself in fresh packaging. This glass tower is just the modern equivalent of a Roman villa. More Wi-Fi, fewer togas, same invisible walls. You step into the bedroom, where the evidence of a carefully orchestrated life is everywhere. The jewelry displayed on a velvet tray, the shelf lined with skincare bottles costing more than a small car, the row of designer shoes all in your size, and it hits you every single thing here is an offering and a reminder. It says you are cared for, but also you belong to someone. The cruelty of it is subtle. No guards stand at the door. You could walk out any time you like, but you won't, because the arrangement is a spider's web, soft, glistening, almost beautiful. You feel both pity and a treacherous flicker of envy. This is the paradox of modern concubinage. From the outside, it looks like a fairy tale. From the inside, it feels like being wrapped in cotton wool until you forget the shape of your own edges. The walls don't keep you in by force, they hold you with comfort. with reassurance, with that sweet little drip of validation that says you matter so long as you stay here. And so you stand in the quiet apartment, listening to the hum of the air conditioner, imagining all the stories this place has silently absorbed. Late night sobbing, early morning apologies, whispered arguments, declarations of love, and the unspoken knowledge that every arrangement has an expiration date. You turn away from the window and slip deeper into the hush, feeling your footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. There are more rooms to see, more evidence of how desire and dependence coil around each other like ivy on a crumbling bedroom door open the rest of the way. As if afraid of startling whatever ghosts linger in here, the lights are dimmed to a honeyed glow. On the bedside table rests a crystal decanter of water and a little dish of sleep supplements, rituals of care or quiet reminders that every detail here has been arranged by someone else. The bed is huge, draped in snowy linen that looks so pristine you're reluctant to breathe near it. You imagine her sitting here at night, knees drawn up, scrolling through messages she'll never answer in daylight. The mattress is a perfect metaphor, soft enough to sink into but vast enough to feel alone no matter how you sprawl. This is the perfect illusion where the trappings of luxury disguise the ache of loneliness. If you glance too quickly, you might think you'd want to trade places, if only for a weekend, but you can almost taste the melancholy that clings to the sheets. Remember that in 17th century Versailles, the maîtresse en titre, the official royal mistress, lived in magnificent apartments directly adjacent to the king's chambers. Everyone envied her silks and diamonds, but even she was never secure. Her favour could evaporate in a single tantrum or a better offer. The modern concubine's life is just as precarious, only now she hides her dread behind an influencer's smile. You drift across the room, fingers trailing over a velvet chaise where she must lounge, posing for selfies destined for a private gallery. It's astonishing how convincingly she can project contentment, how she angles her phone to crop out the ache. 1,000 strangers may scroll past her image and whisper, "Lucky," never guessing the hours she spends wondering if she is lovable without the retainer fee. There's an open laptop glowing on the desk. The screen shows a shopping cart half filled with expensive creams she doesn't really want. You can almost hear her thoughts. If I look perfect, I will be safe. It's a belief as old as concubinage itself. Beauty as a shield, beauty as leverage, beauty as the thing that justifies your place here. Sometimes she must tell herself she's special, chosen, that the others before her were somehow lacking, that she alone has that secret ingredient. This illusion is necessary because it's the only way to bear the possibility of replacement. You can't live in a gilded cage without pretending the lock was custom made just for you. There's a little handwritten note on the pillow. Back late. Don't wait up. You read it twice, as if it might reveal something softer on the second pass. But it's the same. Courteous, casual, a reminder that her presence here is part of someone else's schedule. You wonder how often she reads these messages and feels her stomach knot. An endless waiting, never knowing exactly when the door will open or what mood he'll bring with him. And still she finds a way to maintain the perfect illusion. She posts carefully curated images, breakfast trays with fresh berries, designer bags artfully displayed, feet propped on a balcony railing with the city lights glittering beneath her. She captions them with vague declarations of gratitude and independence, each one a little performance of a life that looks effortless. But you, standing here in the hush, can see all the invisible strings, the silence that feels heavy rather than peaceful, the rituals of maintenance, face masks, workouts, hair appointments that keep her ready, always ready, the gnawing worry that no amount of readiness can guarantee permanence. You wonder if she ever dreams of walking away, if she imagines a modest apartment where no one pays her bills, where every mug in the cabinet is one she chose herself. Maybe she does in the small hours when the illusion thins and the truth seeps in like a cold draft under the door. And yet, There is that part of you, the part you don't admit to anyone, that can't help envying her. You think of your own bills, your own plain sheets, your own predictable loneliness. It's a complicated thing to feel pity and desire at the same time, to know this is not freedom, and still to feel drawn to the softness of it. That's why the illusion is so powerful, because it is partly real. The clothes are beautiful, the bed is comfortable, the financial security is soothing, but all of it comes with the same price, the knowledge that none of it belongs to you outright, that you must remain charming, pliant, and grateful to keep it. You turn from the bed, letting your gaze drift over the little shrine of luxury that makes this place look like a sanctuary. But you know better now. It's just a set, an exquisitely furnished stage where the same play is performed again and again, and tonight you're the silent witness to her performance. You can almost hear her voice rehearsing the same lines. I'm fine. I'm lucky. I'm safe. You close your eyes, imagining the 1,000 tiny heartbreaks these walls have swallowed. The moments when the illusion cracked, the nights when she dared to ask for more, the mornings when she woke and remembered that love, the bedroom here, behind, is only ever feeling its hush settle over you like a second skin. As you move down the hall, you notice the framed prints lining the walls, tasteful black and white photographs of cities she's never visited alone. Rome, Paris, Hong Kong. Each image is a subtle flourish in the story she's learned to tell, that she is a sophisticated woman, that this life is her own creation, that she has agency, but you've already seen behind the curtain. You know how much of this is curated to look effortless, the same way a magician's trick is polished, until the audience stops wondering where the wires are. This is where the past seeps into the present, whether she likes it or not. Concubinage is not some relic buried under centuries of dust. It's simply evolved, sliding into modern forms with all its contradictions intact. You can almost feel the echo of ancient palaces in these minimalist hallways. The same hush, the same tension, the same quiet knowledge that power never gives without expecting something in return. You pause beside a console table displaying a shallow bowl of jade bracelets. Maybe he gave them to her on some anniversary she's not supposed to celebrate too publicly. Maybe each one was meant to soothe an argument, to reinforce her loyalty. In Qing Dynasty China, concubines were often showered with gifts, silks, jewelry, even little ivory carvings, tokens that reminded them they were special while underscoring that they belonged to someone else. And here you are, centuries later, recognizing the same dynamic in the glow of recessed lighting. You press your palm to the smooth wall and try to imagine how many times she stood here, debating whether to text him. Maybe she rehearses the words, "Are you coming? Did I do something wrong?" The scripts change, but the impulse is as old as the first time a woman traded her freedom for protection. You step into the next room, which might as well be a boutique. Shelves display handbags, all perfectly spaced. A low cabinet gleams with an array of heels so pristine they look as if they've never touched pavement. Everything here is arranged to project abundance, as though the presence of so many beautiful things could cancel out the absence of certainty. And isn't that the trick of modern concubinage? You're meant to believe this is security, not dependence. You're meant to admire her discipline, her ability to maintain the arrangement with the appearance of serenity. But you can see the edges where the illusion frays. There's a faint smear of mascara on the corner of a tissue, a shopping bag tucked hastily under a chair, as if she didn't have the energy to fold the receipt inside. You can almost picture her returning here after an evening out, too tired to keep performing. For a few moments, she let herself be ordinary. You think back to the old stories, the concubines of Ottoman harems, kept in rooms lined with tiles so beautiful they made visitors weep. They had attendants, guards, elaborate protocols that regulated every movement, and yet, beneath all that structure, there was the same question. Am I safe? Am I valued? How long will this last? The parallels are unsettling. Time has changed the trappings, not the core. The concubine is still a concubine, whether she wears silk robes or cashmere loungewear. You move to a side table where a sleek leather-bound planner lies open. The handwriting is looping and precise, each page a record of appointments, fitness classes, and discreet notations you can only guess at. Tuesday, Botox top-up. Thursday, dinner at 9. Friday, payment clear. The words are so tidy, so unthreatening, but if you read between the lines, you see the constant maintenance, the vigilant readiness. She is never off duty. Even her downtime is a performance. This is the part no one wants to think about when they envy her. The reality that every hour must be accounted for, every mood calibrated to keep the arrangement intact. If she is too cold, she risks losing favor. If she is too warm, she risks crossing the invisible line between concubine and partner, a line she will never be invited to cross completely. You drift toward the kitchen again, the hush growing thicker around you. You can almost hear her voice, low and practiced, promising that she doesn't mind, that she understands, that she's grateful for everything. But you've seen the note on the pillow, the turned-down photograph. You know better. Remember how in Renaissance Italy, noblemen installed mistresses in discreet apartments just a few streets away from their family palazzos? They were called casa segreta, secret houses. Everyone pretended not to note. The wives accepted the arrangement as a cost of their own security. The concubines accepted it as a cost of survival. You look around this immaculate space and see the same arrangement in new clothes. The city outside has no idea that in this tower, a woman's life is quietly shrinking to fit the shape of someone else's desire. And still, some part of you can't stop picturing how it must feel to open the banking app and see the balance climb higher each month. To know that, for as long as you can play the part, you'll be safe. To wake in the morning and find the fridge stocked, the bills paid, the path ahead paved with comforts you were never promised. This is why modern concubinage inspires envy, even as it demands pity, because it is a compromise dressed as a triumph, because it offers pleasures that feel, at least for a while, like they're worth the cost. You stand by the floor-to-ceiling window, letting the city lights dazzle your tired eyes. The view is magnificent, a panorama of ambition and longing. You wonder how many others, perched in towers just like this one, are living their own variations of this story, playing the role of the adored and the expendable. A small voice inside you whispers that you'd consider it too under the right circumstances, that maybe you already have, in smaller ways. We all trade pieces of ourselves to feel safe. Some people just do it in prettier rooms. The window's reflection shows you both, your own silhouette and the imaginary woman whose life you've been exploring. She tilts her head, appraising you with a gaze that feels almost conspiratorial, as if to say, you understand more than you from the window, and turn back into the apartment, feeling the quiet settle around your shoulders like a shawl you didn't ask to wear. In this place, power wears many masks, and each one is prettier than the last. There's the mask of benevolence. The way he says he wants to take care of you, how generous he seems when he pays off your student loans, as if he's saving you from some terrible fate. Maybe he even believes it. Maybe you do too for a while. There's the mask of romance, the long weekends abroad, the dinners in hidden rooms of Michelin-starred restaurants, the little notes that say thinking of you in a looping hand. They are real gestures, but each one is part of the script. You're not imagining it, you're just not seeing the whole thing. Then there's the mask of mutual understanding, the unspoken agreement that no one here is naive. You both know this isn't an ordinary relationship. You both know it has terms. Maybe that clarity feels refreshing at first, a relief from the half-truths of other romances. But eventually you notice the fine print. You realize the price isn't just your time, It's a little bit of your soul shaved away each day you pretend you don't mind. This is what you can't help thinking as you drift past the shelves lined with candles and curated coffee table books. It all looks so artful, so comfortable, but you can feel the calculation that built it. Remember the way royal concubines in the Forbidden City had to smile for the emperor even when their hearts were breaking? They learned early that affection was an unreliable currency, that beauty was never permanent. The only way to survive was to play the part so flawlessly that no one could see the cracks. You sense that same discipline in this apartment. Each detail down to the color palette is meant to project tranquility. You almost expect to find a plaque somewhere that reads, "Here lives a woman who is perfectly fine." You step into the bathroom and it's as lavish as you imagined. A soaking tub, big enough to swim laps in, counters littered with skincare products so expensive you suspect they come with a blood oath. Never to disclose the price, the silk robe lies folded on a stool, the monogram a discreet flourish of ownership. You pick it up and feel how light it is, weightless, almost, like the promises made in this place. It's in here, of all places, that you start to understand how power thrives in softness. No one is forcing her to stay, no one locks the door at night, but she remains, because everything here is designed to make leaving feel impossible. It's power disguised as comfort, control masquerading as care. And if you're honest, you see the appeal. You think of all the times you've wished for someone to lift the burden from your shoulders, to promise you never have to worry again. The seduction of that fantasy is almost unbearable, a little historical fact for you to savor before bed. In the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan's concubines were often enslaved women who were technically free to leave, but practically bound by dependence. If they did walk away, they lost not just their safety, but every marker of identity they had acquired. Here in this bathroom, you can almost feel that same invisible tether, looping around her ankles no matter how far she wanders. You run your hand over the marble counter, feeling how cool it is under your fingertips. The faucets gleam, as if no one has ever used them. Another illusion, another carefully constructed scene. You step back into the hall and pause at the small gallery of photographs, candid shots of her laughing on a yacht, posing in the glow of some private beach, seated beside him at a gala where no one quite dared to call her what she was. You can't help wondering how often she studies these images and tells herself the story that makes it all feel acceptable. I'm here because he values me, because I matter, and maybe that's true in a way. Maybe he does value her so long as she remains exactly what he wants her to be. The mask of affection is the most convincing of all. It's the one that makes the rest of this arrangement feel almost reasonable. You watch her smiling in those photos, and for a moment you almost believe it too. Almost. But then you remember the turned-down photograph on the vanity, the note on the pillow, the tidy planner etched with reminders that nothing here is fully hers. You stand in the center of the apartment, surrounded by evidence of a life that looks perfect but feels, in your bones, like something far more complicated. And you realize this is the truth no one wants to name. When power wears the mask of love, it is the hardest deception, letting your gaze drift over the curated perfection. You're trying to pinpoint the feeling it stirs in you, some sour cocktail of fascination, envy, and an ache that tastes like pity, because no matter how polished this life appears, you can feel it, the jealousy that seeps in like damp through the walls. It's not just your own, though you're honest enough to admit that part of you is tempted. No, jealousy circles this place like a hungry cat. It lives in the minds of everyone who glimpses her Instagram feed, who sees her stepping from a chauffeured car, who watches her slip through a lobby carrying shopping bags worth more than some people's yearly wages. You imagine the strangers who pass her in restaurants, the sideways glances, the half-swallowed comments. Must be nice. She doesn't even work. She'll regret this one day, and maybe she will. Maybe she already does. But for every accusation, there is also a flicker of something more treacherous: admiration. Because even the critics recognize a kind of power in her position, however borrowed it is. You drift past the kitchen island, remembering that 18th century courtesans in Paris were treated with the same mixture of contempt and envy. They were ridiculed for their dependence, but envied for the influence and luxury their patronage brought them. Some wielded enough clout to sway politics or ruin reputations. Their worth was measured in jewels and carriages, but also in the burning curiosity of those who watched them. Nothing has changed. You feel it in yourself, the reluctant awe of someone who knows the price is steep, but still wonders if the velvet cage is softer than your own reality. You imagine her here, in the quiet hours when she can finally drop the mask. Maybe she pours herself a drink, stands barefoot at the window, and allows the truth to bloom in her chest, that she is both envied and pitied, that her life is a performance she didn't entirely write. Maybe she remembers the first time she let him pay for something small, a taxi fare, a dinner, and how easily it grew into this entire existence. How quickly independence blurred into dependence. You picture her scrolling through the comments on her photos, seeing the same chorus over and over: goals, living the dream. Teach me your ways. You can almost hear her laugh at the absurdity of it, because what no one tells you is that the dream comes with 1,000 tiny humiliations. Indignities so subtle you start to pretend they don't matter. You think of the times she has had to wait, unacknowledged at the edge of some event where she was not officially welcome, the time she has been introduced as a friend, her real role unspoken but obvious to anyone who cared to guess. And still, the jealousy persists. Because even knowing the price, some part of you wonders if you'd trade places, if only for a while. In the corner of the living room, there's a glass cabinet displaying little trophies of her kept existence, souvenirs from trips she never planned, a watch engraved with initials not her own, a delicate necklace she rarely wears in public. You imagine her dusting these objects, feeling their weight, remembering each moment when they were offered as proof of affection. Jealousy is a funny thing. It doesn't care if the life you envy is hollow. It doesn't care if the cost is higher than you can see. It only cares that, for a moment, you can pretend it might be worth it. You trail your fingers over a low credenza where a stack of magazines waits, interiors, glossies, and fashion bibles. You picture her flipping through them, wondering if she looks like the women on those pages, or if she only plays the part. And that's the secret everyone pretends not to know, that even the most enviable lives are stitched together with compromises. The woman you envy is envying someone else. The woman you pity is sometimes pitying you. Outside, the city hums with the same restless hunger. You think of all the other apartments, all the other velvet cages, all the other women perfecting the same performance. You wonder if any of them ever meet each other's eyes across the candlelit tables and see the truth reflected back, that envy is just another chain, one we willingly fasten around our own necks. And you can't help but ask yourself quietly, honestly, if you would really be immune to the temptation. Because this is what modern concubinage does best. It makes you question your own convictions. It makes you measure your own freedom against the allure of being chosen, protected, adorned. It makes you wonder if pity and envy are just two faces of the same mask. You stand and you suspect you already know, letting your gaze drift over the curated perfection. You're trying to pinpoint the feeling it stirs in you, some sour cocktail of fascination, envy, and an ache that tastes like pity, because no matter how polished this life appears, you can feel it, the jealousy that seeps in like damp through the walls. It's not just your own, though you're honest enough to admit that part of you is tempted. No, jealousy circles this place like a hungry cat. It lives in the minds of everyone who glimpses her Instagram feed, who sees her stepping from a chauffeured car, who watches her slip through a lobby carrying shopping bags worth more than some people's yearly wages. You imagine the strangers who pass her in restaurants, the sideways glances, the half-swallowed comments. Must be nice. She doesn't even work. She'll regret this one day, and maybe she will. Maybe she already does. But for every accusation there is also a flicker of something more treacherous: admiration. Because even the critics recognize a kind of power in her position, however borrowed it is. You drift past the kitchen island, remembering that 18th century courtesans in Paris were treated with the same mixture of contempt and envy. They were ridiculed for their dependence, but envied for the influence and luxury their patronage brought them. Some wielded enough clout to sway politics or ruin reputations. Their worth was measured in jewels and carriages, but also in the burning curiosity of those who watched them. Nothing has changed. You feel it in yourself, the reluctant awe of someone who knows the price is steep, but still wonders if the velvet cage is softer than your own reality. You imagine her here, in the quiet hours when she can finally drop the mask. Maybe she pours herself a drink, stands barefoot at the window, and allows the truth to bloom in her chest, that she is both envied and pitied, that her life is a performance she didn't entirely write. Maybe she remembers the first time she let him pay for something small, a taxi fare, a dinner, and how easily it grew into this entire existence. How quickly independence blurred into dependence. You picture her scrolling through the comments on her photos, seeing the same chorus over and over: goals, living the dream. Teach me your ways. You can almost hear her laugh at the absurdity of it, because what no one tells you is that the dream comes with 1,000 tiny humiliations. Indignities so subtle you start to pretend they don't matter. You think of the times she has had to wait, unacknowledged at the edge of some event where she was not officially welcome, the time she has been introduced as a friend, her real role unspoken but obvious to anyone who cared to guess. And still, the jealousy persists. Because even knowing the price, some part of you wonders if you'd trade places, if only for a while. In the corner of the living room, there's a glass cabinet displaying little trophies of her kept existence, souvenirs from trips she never planned, a watch engraved with initials not her own, a delicate necklace she rarely wears in public. You imagine her dusting these objects, feeling their weight, remembering each moment when they were offered as proof of affection. Jealousy is a funny thing. It doesn't care if the life you envy is hollow. It doesn't care if the cost is higher than you can see. It only cares that, for a moment, you can pretend it might be worth it. You trail your fingers over a low credenza where a stack of magazines waits, interiors, glossies, and fashion bibles. You picture her flipping through them, wondering if she looks like the women on those pages, or if she only plays the part. And that's the secret everyone pretends not to know, that even the most enviable lives are stitched together with compromises. The woman you envy is envying someone else. The woman you pity is sometimes pitying you. Outside, the city hums with the same restless hunger. You think of all the other apartments, all the other velvet cages, all the other women perfecting the same performance. You wonder if any of them ever meet each other's eyes across the candlelit tables and see the truth reflected back, that envy is just another chain, one we willingly fasten around our own necks. And you can't help but ask yourself quietly, honestly, if you would really be immune to the temptation. Because this is what modern concubinage does best. It makes you question your own convictions. It makes you measure your own freedom against the allure of being chosen, protected, adorned. It makes you wonder if pity and envy are just two faces of the same mask, and you suspect you already know the answer. Letting your hand skim the cool marble of the entryway. The door is heavy, soundproofed, and fitted with security features most people would never notice. In this world, discretion is everything, and the rules of the gilded cage are both invisible and inviolable. You pause, picturing her standing here, pressing an ear to the door, listening for footsteps in the hall. She knows exactly when to expect him, and more importantly, when not to. There's an etiquette to being kept, a choreography of silence and anticipation, learned slowly, often painfully. It's a kind of code, unwritten, and yet absolute. Rule number 1, never show up uninvited. You are not the partner, not the wife, not the one who gets to make demands. Your time belongs to him, parceled out in increments that suit his needs. He likes the idea that you're always available, but never in the way. Rule number 2, be discreet. No social media posts with identifiable details. No friends who might talk. No neighbors who might ask questions. The entire point is that your existence fits seamlessly into the blank spaces of his life. You are there when he needs you, invisible when he does not. Rule number 3, never ask for more. The arrangement is only stable as long as the boundaries hold. Push for definition, a title, a future, public acknowledgement, and the entire illusion risks collapse. So you learn to treasure the tokens of affection for what they are, proof of your current favor, nothing more. And perhaps the hardest rule of all, always be ready to disappear, whether he drifts away, finds someone new, or simply tires of the arrangement. You know how quickly the doors can close. There are no guarantees, no safety nets, only the fleeting security of now. You move through the apartment, noting the subtle ways these rules have shaped her life. There are no family photos on the shelves, no invitations tacked to the fridge, no mementos of a world outside this hush. Every possession is a testament to discretion, every surface polished until it reveals nothing. Yet within these rules, you sense a complex dance, a push and pull between dependence and defiance. She knows how to play the game, how to offer the right blend of warmth and detachment, how to listen without pressing, how to smile at jokes that aren't funny, how to appear grateful without being desperate. It reminds you of the unspoken etiquette that governed the royal courts of Europe, where a single misstep could mean banishment or worse. Court favorites and mistresses understood these rules instinctively, their survival dependent on their ability to read a room, interpret a glance, anticipate the shifting moods of their benefactors. One historical fact lingers in your mind. In the Qing dynasty, imperial concubines were forbidden to address the emperor directly, unless spoken to first. Even the highest-ranking favorites knew their place could vanish in a heartbeat. The elaborate rituals that governed their every movement were meant to protect the emperor's dignity, but they also served as constant reminders of their own precariousness. You imagine her moving through her own rituals, checking her phone every few minutes, jumping at the sound of the elevator, rehearsing her smile before he arrives. Perhaps she keeps a mental ledger of small victories, times she made him laugh, nights he lingered a little longer, gifts that hinted at genuine affection. But you also see the toll these rules take. The way her back straightens when the phone rings unexpectedly, the flicker of anxiety when plans change without warning, the careful way she navigates conversations to avoid any hint of need. It is exhausting, this vigilance, a performance that never really ends. Yet somehow she manages to keep her balance. Perhaps she even tells herself that the rules are there for her protection, that as long as she abides by them, she can keep what she has. It is easier to believe in the system than to admit how fragile it is. You sit on the edge of her velvet sofa, letting the silence press in. There is a kind of grace to her resilience, an artistry in the way she maintains her dignity within such narrow confines. You find yourself admiring her discipline, her ability to survive, maybe even thrive in a world designed to keep her in place. And isn't that the cruelest irony? That the very skills that make her desirable, her poise, her discretion, her adaptability, are the same ones that keep her trapped. She is both a master and a prisoner of her own performance. You glance around the apartment, noting the signs of a life lived by someone else's rules. The unopened books on the shelf, The untouched bottle of wine on the counter, the immaculate throw pillows that never lose their shape. Everything here is poised for inspection, ready for its moment in the spotlight. You wonder if she ever wishes to break a rule just to see what would happen. To invite a friend over, to leave the dishes unwashed, to post a photo with a daring caption. Maybe she does once in a while, just to remind herself that she still can, but you suspect that most of the time, she chooses safety over rebellion. After all, the rules exist for a reason. They keep the peace, preserve the arrangement, protect the delicate equilibrium she has worked so hard to maintain. You stand, smoothing the cushion behind you, and make your way to the bedroom again. There, on the nightstand, you notice a small notebook, its pages filled with lists and reminders written in looping script, grocery lists, skincare routines, quotes clipped from books and articles, each a small assertion of control in a world that often feels uncontrollable. You read a line she's copied in careful handwriting. Happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. You wonder if she believes it, or if it's simply something she repeats to herself on the harder days. You think about the rules she lives by, and you realize that for all their cruelty, they have given her a kind of structure, a framework in which to build her own sense of self-worth, however precarious. She has learned to find meaning within the limits, to carve out moments of joy even as she navigates the ever-shifting terrain of someone else's desires. And you, standing here in her quiet sanctuary, can't help but feel a kind of awe, because it takes a particular kind of strength to survive in the gilded cage, to follow the rules without losing yourself completely, to maintain hope even as the future grows less certain with every passing day. You close the notebook, place it gently back on the nightstand, and let the silence stretch. Somewhere in the distance you hear the faint hum of the city, a reminder that life goes on, that stories like hers are playing out in apartments and hotels all over the world. The rules of the gilded cage are harsh, but they are also strangely beautiful in their own way. They offer the comfort of predictability, the illusion of safety, the promise of belonging, if only for a little while. And as you step back into the hush of the apartment, you realize that these rules, for all their cruelty, are also a testament to the resilience of those who live by them. Because to survive in this world, you must be both pliant and unbreakable, soft enough to bend, strong enough not to shatter. In this silent, curated space, you leave behind the trace of your sympathy, your envy, and your uneasy admiration. The rules remain, as unyielding as ever, and the woman who lives here abides by them with the quiet dignity of someone who has learned how to. The gentle ticking of a designer clock marking time with a kind of mockery. Here, every gift shines, but you know now to look for the barbs beneath the velvet, because in this world every luxury is both a token and a tether, gifts with hidden barbs, sweet on the surface, but always with a cost. You survey the room, bouquets of roses so fresh their scent fills the air, a delicate watch that sparkles on the coffee table, a silver tray with keys to a new car. Each item is a monument to his affection, and also a silent reminder: everything here is conditional, nothing is ever truly yours. You remember reading about how, in the Russian imperial court, Tsars would shower their favorites with jewels, estates, even titles. Sometimes those gifts would bring protection and security. Other times they were a gilded warning: treasure today, but tomorrow all could be taken back with a word or a whim. It is not so different now. The papers you sign, the NDAs, the contracts that slip quietly into your life alongside the designer handbags, they all carry the same subtext. This comfort, this safety, it lasts only as long as you do. You imagine her sitting in the buttery glow of a lamp, fingering a delicate gold bracelet. She's memorizing every detail, the feel of it, the way it catches the light, the secret message engraved inside. Does she love the bracelet, or does she love what it represents? Perhaps both, or neither. Perhaps it is just a talisman, something to clutch when the future feels especially uncertain. You find a phone on the arm of the couch, screen aglow with unread messages, promises of more gifts, offers for more dinners, whispers of more beautiful distractions. There is a trap in abundance, you realize. The more you receive, the more you fear its loss. Each new luxury becomes a tiny anxiety, a pressure to stay pleasing, a reason not to rock the boat. There's a box tucked under the couch, a treasure chest of sorts. You pull it out and open the lid to find ticket stubs, old love notes, a faded scarf that smells faintly of his cologne, relics of a time when each gift felt thrilling, not burdensome. You can almost hear her laughter from that first weekend away, the nervous delight of being chosen, of being rewarded for her charm. The novelty was intoxicating then. Now it's weighed down by memory. You remember an old French saying, "He who gives can also take." In the world of kept women, generosity is rarely free. There's always an expectation lurking behind the ribbon, gratitude, obedience, a readiness to say yes. The gifts are proof of care, but also instruments of control. You pause, picturing the moment when a gift becomes a shackle. Perhaps it's subtle. He gives her a new phone but insists on knowing the passcode. He buys her clothes but hints at which styles he prefers. He stocks the pantry with her favourite foods, but only when he's the one choosing the menu. It is power expressed through sweetness, a velvet glove over a clenched fist. Even the home itself is both sanctuary and snare. It is beautiful, safe, quiet, but it is not hers. If the arrangement ends, she leaves with what she arrived with, perhaps a suitcase, perhaps a new wardrobe, but never the deeds or the lease. The furniture will remain, cold and indifferent to her absence. You pass by a shelf lined with perfume bottles, each one a gift, their scents mix in the air: jasmine, rose, sandalwood, vanilla. You imagine her choosing which to wear each morning, wondering which version of herself he wants today. Is she the innocent, the sophisticate, the seductress? Each bottle a mask, each spritz a performance. You remember stories from the Ottoman court, where sultans bestowed rare perfumes on their favourites as a mark of favour, but if the tide shifted, those same women would be left with nothing but fading scent and a distant memory of what it meant to be adored. Your gaze falls on a book of poetry left open on the coffee table, a pressed flower marking a page. You read the line underlined in ink: "All that is gold does not glitter. All who wander are not lost." You wonder if she finds comfort in those words, or if they are just another pretty thing that doesn't quite belong to her. You realize that luxury, for the kept woman, is never just about beauty or comfort. It's about the delicate dance of gratitude and caution, the need to remain worthy of the next gift while bracing for the day it might all be withdrawn. You hear the soft whir of the refrigerator, the muted buzz of the city far below. The apartment is filled with treasures, but none of them anchor her. They float like islands of plenty in a sea of uncertainty. Perhaps that's the sharpest barb of all, the knowledge that every gift can be a weapon, a promise, a threat, a test. She is grateful, but she is also wary. Each new present brings its own silent question. How long will this last? What must I do to keep it? You turn, letting your eyes sweep over the room one last time. The flowers will wilt, the perfume will fade, the messages will pile up unread. What endures is the vigilance, the discipline, the learned caution that wraps itself around every gift. In this velvet cage, the prettiest things are sometimes the hardest to hold, and as you step into the bedroom, you wonder if she has a secret drawer, a hidden box, a stash of plain, sturdy things that she chose for herself. A little reminder that somewhere beneath the gifts and the gratitude, she still belongs to herself, if only in small, letting your gaze travel over the carefully made bed, the expensive silk pajamas folded just so, the tiny velvet box on the nightstand, This room is a shrine to comfort and security, and yet you can sense the undertow of dread running just beneath the surface. Here is where the real price of security is paid, quietly, daily, and often invisibly. You imagine her lying awake at night, the city's heartbeat pulsing through the windows. She stares at the ceiling, counting gifts, counting reassurances, counting the days since she last felt truly certain of anything. Security, after all, is never really guaranteed in this world. It's offered, not owned, bestowed, not earned, and most cruelly, it is always conditional. You recall the stories of concubines in imperial harems, where a single whim could banish a woman to obscurity, or worse, a concubine's future was never her own. It was decided in private conversations, in shifting alliances, in the unpredictable tides of favor. In those palaces, women slept in their jewelry, never knowing if the morning would bring a summons or a dismissal. The anxiety was palpable, woven into the very fabric of their daily lives. It's not so different now. In the modern penthouse, security means having your name on the lease. If you're lucky, or at least on the utilities, it means having enough tucked away to survive a sudden silence, a change in heart, an end to the arrangement you've built your life around. Maybe she keeps an emergency bag packed in the closet, just in case. Maybe she's been here before and she knows better than to assume that safety is permanent. You wander to the vanity, studying the lineup of skincare bottles, potions to keep her youthful, to hold on to her value just a little longer. Aging out of favor is a fear she rarely speaks aloud, but you can feel it hovering here, in every routine, every serum, every late-night internet search for miracle solutions. You think of the lavish parties you've heard about, where beautiful women gather in clusters, sharing secrets and survival tips. They swap advice on investments, on legal protections, on how to build a nest egg without rousing suspicion. Some of them succeed. They parlay gifts into businesses, turn connections into stepping stones, quietly prepare for the day when the phone call never comes. But not everyone manages to escape the velvet trap. For every story of a mistress who lands on her feet, there are others who vanish, their names replaced by new favorites, their stories relegated to gossip and memory. The price of security is vigilance, a constant readiness to pivot, to smile through uncertainty, to make plans that may never be needed. You think about the small, fearful calculations she makes each day. Can she ask for more this month, or will that seem greedy? Should she bring up the topic of their future, or risk being replaced by someone younger, newer, more compliant? Every interaction is loaded, every gift is a sign to be interpreted, every silence a warning, and you see how the dread creeps into her most peaceful moments. Even when she's lounging in the bath, sipping champagne, her mind is never fully at rest. There is always a little voice whispering, all this could disappear tomorrow. So she saves quietly and carefully, stashing away enough to land safely should the world she knows dissolve overnight. It's no wonder that her friendships are complicated, that her smile sometimes falters, that she flinches at surprises. Security is her greatest asset, and also her deepest fear. She is safe, but only as long as the arrangement endures. Her status is enviable and fragile, two realities that can never be separated. In this world, you realize, security is a performance as much as any other. She wears it like a fragrance, obvious at first, but fading with every hour that passes. It is both the gift and the curse of being kept. You move to the window, the city stretching out below, the lights shimmering with possibility and threat. You imagine her standing here, watching the world turn, knowing that everything she has is at once real and fleeting. Tonight, as you stand in her room, you understand the price of security in a way you never have before. It is paid in vigilance, in silence, in the readiness to start over at a moment's notice. It is a tax levied on every gift, every promise, every comfortable night's sleep. And as you leave the room, closing the door behind you, you carry with you the uneasy knowledge that in this world, security is never free. It is a bargain struck anew each day, one you must keep paying. Quietly, back into the quiet corridors of the apartment, the soft hush of luxury pressing in as you notice the smallest details, the faint scuff on a marble tile, a tiny chip in a gilded frame, a forgotten coffee spoon left askew. There's a human presence here beneath all this polish, a flicker of rebellion, tiny but unmistakable. Because for all the velvet chains, some concubines find ways to rebel, to carve out little freedoms, even when the risks are high. You can almost see the secret bank account, hidden under an alias, its balance growing slowly with each careful deposit. You picture the envelope of cash tucked behind a row of books, the anonymous credit card hidden in a box of winter gloves, the passwords memorized but never written down. Tiny freedoms, big risks. Here is a truth that doesn't make it onto the Instagram feed. Sometimes the kept woman plots her own escape, one small step at a time. You imagine her sitting at her sleek kitchen island, phone in hand, eyes darting over messages not meant for his eyes. She has friends, real or virtual, and together they share strategies, commiserate over close calls, swap stories about women who got out with their dignity and sometimes their fortunes intact. It's a sisterhood built on whispers and knowing glances, careful not to draw too much attention, always alert to the possibility of discovery. You remember reading about the Georgian-era mistresses who kept coded diaries recording gifts and payments, secret assignations, even investments in their own names. Some would buy property, sometimes with the help of sympathetic lawyers or distant relatives, creating a buffer against the day their favor ran dry. The stakes were high, but so was the reward. A little nest egg, a measure of independence, a promise to themselves that they would never be entirely at someone else's mercy. You move to the desk in the corner, where a slim laptop glows softly in the dark. The search history is erased, the emails all carefully worded, but there's an encrypted folder labeled recipes, and you know, as she does, that it hides spreadsheets, investment plans, maybe even an escape route mapped out in careful detail. She might have learned about stocks, crypto, real estate, whatever it takes to create a plan B. There are other acts of quiet rebellion too. Sometimes she ignores his calls, lets a message go unanswered, leaves the apartment for an hour longer than she said she would. Sometimes she spends his money on things just for herself. Something practical, unglamorous, meant for a future he's never imagined for her. And when she meets other women in her situation, there's a quiet exchange of recognition, a look that says, "We're all living on borrowed time, aren't we?" Maybe in another world they'd be rivals. Here they are secret allies, united by the shared knowledge that being kept is never as simple as it seems. You think of the courtesans in Belle Epoque Paris, who ran salon and supported each other, who pooled their resources and watched each other's backs. Some even built lives beyond their arrangements, founding businesses, supporting artists, leaving legacies that outlived the men who thought they owned them. In this apartment, every drawer and cupboard is a potential hiding place, not just for valuables, but for hope, for plans, for the tiny seeds of autonomy. Every luxury has a shadow, and sometimes that shadow is the beginning of freedom. You turn toward the bathroom, where the mirror reflects a face more tired than she lets on. She practices her smile, rehearses her stories, but in the privacy of her own mind, she's always planning, always watching, always hedging her bets. The longer she stays, the more she learns, and the more she prepares for the moment when staying is no longer an option. You catch a glimpse of a journal half hidden beneath a stack of magazines. You pick it up, feeling the weight of secrets tucked between its pages. Maybe here she's written about her fears, her dreams, her strategies for survival. Maybe she lists the things she will buy when she is finally free. A sturdy suitcase, a simple studio flat, a one-way ticket to a city where no one knows her name. Even the act of dreaming is an act of rebellion. In a world built on dependency, imagining another life is its own kind of resistance, and sometimes the risks are real. You remember stories, modern and historical, of women caught plotting their escape, punished for their audacity. Some are cut off, some threatened, some slandered. The world can be cruel to women who try to change the rules, but still, the plotting continues because the need for freedom outweighs the cost of staying. You walk into the closet, where a suitcase waits half-packed. It's not just for travel, it's insurance, a silent promise she's made to herself. You can almost hear her thoughts. If it all ends tomorrow, I will not be caught unprepared. Tiny freedoms, big risks. Each act of defiance is a gamble, but in the end, these are the acts that keep her whole. They are reminders that even in the softest prison, she can still find ways to belong to herself. You step out into the living room, heart beating a little faster, and realize that the greatest luxury of all isn't the jewels or the view or even the security. It's the ability to choose, to plan, to imagine, to escape. The apartment grows quiet again, but now you see it differently. It is not just a cage, it is also a launch pad, a hiding place, a workshop for hope. And as you stand there, listening to the hum of the city, you know that every kept woman who finds a tiny freedom, every small rebellion, is rewriting the story one careful, glancing at the sleek phone resting on the console table, a portal not just to the outside world, but to a carefully constructed narrative. You step closer, drawn to the screen that glows with curated images, sunlit breakfasts, spa days, the flash of diamond rings in a cocktail lounge, all captured with flawless lighting and a practiced smile. It's hard not to be dazzled, at least at first. The fantasy is intoxicating, but behind the Instagram smile, you sense the strain. Every photo is a calculated performance, each one designed to provoke admiration, envy, or longing. She knows which angle flatters her cheekbones, which filter softens the truth. She captions each shot with just the right blend of gratitude and confidence, careful never to appear ungrateful but always hinting at an effortless, enviable life. You scroll and scroll, noticing the absence of any true vulnerability. The dark circles erased, the arguments never shown, the moments of doubt left unspoken. You realize it's a careful illusion, one meant to reassure her benefactor, impress her followers, and perhaps most of all, convince herself. The world may never see the shadow behind the glow, the way she flinches at an unexpected call, the little knots of anxiety that twist her stomach when a text goes unanswered. She's not alone in this. You remember reading about the courtesans of Belle Epoque Paris, who commissioned painted portraits that showed them at their most alluring, always beautiful, always in control, never depicted in moments of sorrow or fear. Today's digital self-portrait is different only in medium, not in message. Yet for all its gloss, you sense the weight of being constantly on display, the pressure to remain worthy of envy, the burden of hiding the cracks, the knowledge that a single misstep, one hint of neediness, one public argument, one wrong post, could topple the illusion. She reads the comments, of course. Goddess, living the dream, teach me your ways. But underneath the praise is a brittle loneliness. Sometimes she wishes someone would see the whole truth, the exhaustion behind the eyes, the fear of becoming forgettable, the ache that comes from knowing your place is contingent on staying beautiful and agreeable. You find her ring light stashed behind the sofa, the backdrop folded neatly in a closet. Even her tools of self-presentation must be hidden, just in case. There's a schedule taped inside the vanity mirror, reminders for hair appointments, nail fills, monthly facials, Pilates classes. The routine is as much about maintaining the illusion as it is about self-care. You remember a fact from history. In 18th century London, Popular courtesans wrote carefully controlled memoirs, shaping their reputations for public consumption. They understood that the power to craft one's own image was sometimes the only real power available, but it came at a price. Every story was subject to scrutiny, every performance met with both applause and judgment. You step to the window and watch the city's lights flicker far below. How many lives are lived this way, you wonder? Outwardly perfect, inwardly precarious. How many followers would still envy her if they saw the silences, the anxiety, the readiness to vanish at a moment's notice? Her envy-inducing images are a shield, but they are also a cage. The pressure to appear replaceable, but never too attached, means she's always half a step from losing everything. She can't ask for more. She can't post her real feelings. She can't even admit, most days, how tired she is. The irony is sharp. The more followers she collects, the more alone she sometimes feels. The more she smiles for strangers, the less she smiles for herself. But there are moments too when she catches herself in the mirror and sees the resilience in her own eyes. She remembers how many masks she's learned to wear, how many versions of herself she's mastered. Even if the world never sees her fully, she knows her own strength. For now, that will have to be enough. You set her phone down, careful not to smudge the screen, and step back into the hush of the apartment. Outside, the night stretches on, the city buzzing with a million unseen stories. Inside, the illusion holds for another day, and as you drift through the silence, you know that behind every Instagram smile is a story no filter can hide, a story of survival, longing, walk into the kitchen and a complicated again, kind of marble island bathed in the low glow of recessed lights. For a moment it feels almost ordinary, just another late evening in another beautiful home. But you know better now. You've felt the hush too closely to mistake it for peace. You've traced the outlines of the performance, and as you stand there, you become aware of something else, the whispers that live in the shadows of this place. Whispers in the form of rumors and scandal. Whispers in the hush money agreements, the carefully worded statements, the half-finished stories that circulate among those who pretend not to watch too closely. You pull out a stool and sit, imagining how many conversations have played out across this counter, the soft confessions to girlfriends who promised not to repeat them, the tense phone calls in the middle of the night, the clipped exchanges with lawyers when things began to unravel. If you strain to listen, you can almost hear them still, because wherever there is power and desire, there is gossip. People love to talk about the kept woman, to guess at the secret she never confirms. How much does he pay her? What does she tolerate? What does she know? They wonder, secretly thrilled by the possibility of scandal, quietly reassured that her comfort is not free of cost. You remember a story you once read about the courtesans of Venice. They were both envied and despised, lavished with gifts by noblemen who swore their loyalty in the dark, but publicly denied any attachment. When a courtesan fell from favor, the same men who once praised her would spread whispers designed to strip her of dignity, that she was greedy, unstable, past her prime. The cruelty was almost ritual, as if destroying her reputation was the final payment extracted for her years of privilege. Nothing has really changed. Today, the gossip is just faster, shared in text threads and tabloids, reshared and dissected until it becomes the only story people remember. She knows this. That's why she's learned to keep her voice low, her circle small, her private truths tucked away where no one can reach them. And yet, no matter how careful she is, the whispers still find their way in. You picture her reading an article online, her name thinly veiled by euphemism, her situation reduced to a handful of lurid sentences. You imagine the sick flush that creeps up her throat, the shame she swallows before she closes the tab. Even when she's done nothing wrong, especially when she's done nothing wrong, the whispers will find a way to paint her as complicit, as cunning, as a cautionary tale. The worst part is that she has no real recourse. She can't stand up and declare the truth because the arrangement relies on discretion. She can't correct the story without risking the security she's worked so hard to keep, so she pretends she doesn't care, even as each fresh rumor scrapes a little more skin from her confidence. You rise and drift toward the living room, where the dim lamp casts golden pools of light across the carpet. Here too, the silence hums with what's left unsaid. Maybe he's promised her she'll never have to worry. Maybe he swears he'll never leave her stranded. But the history of women in her place is littered with assurances that evaporated the moment they became inconvenient. You think again of the Ottoman harem, where women who fell out of favor were quietly moved to smaller rooms, their jewels reclaimed, their servants reassigned. The gossip that followed them was often worse than exile. It was a public accounting of every flaw, every rumor, every story people had been too polite to share when she still held power. And here, in the 21st century, that same dynamic plays out behind sleek glass towers and private drivers. No matter how modern the setting, the script remains unchanged. Praise while she's adored, scorn when she's gone. You turn back toward the kitchen, your footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. You can almost see her here, phone clutched to her ear, voice soft but urgent as she tries to contain some new eruption of gossip. You wonder how many times she's had to deny something she never did, to insist she's not who they say she is. You wonder how often she's wanted to scream that no one really knows her, that no one sees the whole story. But the performance demands composure. She must keep the smile fixed in place. She must keep the doors closed. She must act as though the whispers don't sting, as though the rumors are too small to merit her attention. And when the call ends, when the headlines fade, when the hush returns, she's left alone with the echo of all those voices, alone with the knowledge that she will never be allowed to control the narrative. Alone with the certainty that the world has already decided who she is. You stand there, the quiet pressing in, and you think that perhaps the hardest part isn't the gossip itself, but the knowledge that it never really ends. Even if she walks away one day, the stories will follow her, each retelling a little more distorted than the last. But there is a kind of courage in the way she keeps going, a kind of strength in the way she refuses to let the whispers define her, even when they leave bruises she can't show. In this you find something you hadn't expected. Respect, because no matter how much the world gossips, she is still here, still standing, still determined to claim her place, even if it must remain hidden. And as you take one last look around the room, you realize that while the whispers may never stop, feeling the air shift as you cross the threshold. Here, more than anywhere else, the contradictions of her life collect like dust in the corners. The soft sheets and the hard truths, the comfort and the ache, the admiration and the pity. You stand beside the bed and feel something tighten in your chest as you imagine her lying here, night after night, grappling with the same question you now find lodged in your own thoughts. Would you trade places? It's not an easy question, because it's one thing to pity her, the dependence, the vigilance, the readiness to vanish. It's another to reckon honestly with the part of you that understands why she stays. You picture her in the morning light, the city sprawling beyond the glass as she wakes to the scent of fresh flowers and the hush of a place where she never has to worry about the rent. You see her slipping into a silk robe, checking her phone, reading the messages that reassure her she is still chosen. For a moment it looks like freedom, or something close enough to pass for it. But you also see her in the darker hours when the reassurance runs thin. You see the lines etched near her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands, as she deletes an unsent message she's too afraid to send. You see her sitting perfectly still, rehearsing her gratitude, her poise, her refusal to need too much. And you realize this is the unspoken truth of modern concubinage. It inspires both pity and envy, because it contains something recognizable to almost everyone who hasn't made compromises for safety, traded vulnerability for protection, bartered small pieces of themselves to keep the peace? Who hasn't wondered what it would feel like to be wanted so much that someone would pay for your life to remain untouched by ordinary worries? You think of the people scrolling past her photos, whispering judgments they never dare say aloud. She's sold herself. She's pathetic. She's clever. She's lucky. All those reactions say more about the watchers than the watched, because hidden in the pity is a flicker of desire. Hidden in the envy is a reflex of scorn. You remember the courtesans of Belle Epoque Paris, whose apartments were filled with the same contradictions, lavish gifts and crushing loneliness, public adoration and private shame. They too were envied and despised in equal measure. The men who funded their lifestyles often despised them most of all because they needed them, because they were jealous of the power these women wielded in private. Here, in this apartment, you sense the same strange power. She is not free in any way most people would recognize, and yet she occupies a position of singular importance in someone else's life. She is indispensable until she isn't. She is cherished and controlled in the same breath. You imagine her sitting at the edge of the bed, phone in her lap, weighing the same question you are. Is this enough? The only answer she's ever found is the one she lives each day, for now, and you realize that is the most honest answer any of us ever have. Because for all the tidy opinions people offer, she's a fool, she's a gold digger, she's a victim. The truth is always more complicated. You feel it yourself. The small, unspoken part of you that thinks, I could do this. That wonders if the trade would be worth it. That imagines how it would feel to be adored, protected, envied, even if only for a season. It's uncomfortable to admit, but you don't look away. You let the feeling rise in you, raw and unvarnished, because you know this is the heart of the story. You sit on the edge of the bed, the sheets whispering under your weight, and you try to picture what it would mean to stay here, to surrender to the arrangement completely, to trade your independence for the kind of safety that comes in monthly deposits. Could you stand it? Could you be gracious enough, patient enough, beautiful enough to remain in favor? Could you hold yourself apart from the whispers, from the creeping fear that your value has an expiration date? You aren't sure, and that uncertainty feels like the most human reaction of all, because while you pity her, you also envy her. You envy the absence of mundane struggle. You envy the validation, the ease, the sparkling illusion of a life curated to impress, but you pity the cost, the constant readiness to be replaced, the knowledge that every comfort can be revoked by a change in mood. You close your eyes and breathe in the scent of roses and sandalwood. For a moment you pretend you belong here, that all this is yours, that you are the one who has been chosen. And it feels good, undeniably good, until it doesn't. Until you remember what it took to keep it. You stand slowly, smoothing the sheets behind you. The apartment seems to exhale around you, as if it knows you're leaving. You glance around one last time, seeing the space as she must see it. A haven and a prison, a stage and a sanctuary, a testament to the impossible contradictions of her life. And as you walk to the door, you carry with you the uneasy knowledge that envy and pity are not opposites but twins, born of the same longing, the same fear, the same recognition that all of us in our own ways are searching for something a moment longer. Hand on the frame, the hush of the apartment wrapping around you like an expensive shroud. Part of you doesn't want to leave yet, because if you walk away, you'll have to admit how much of yourself you see reflected in this place. The longing for ease, the dread of dependence, the curiosity about how any heart survives in a life so conditional. And perhaps most unsettling of all is the knowledge that sometimes, against all the logic and caution, real affection grows in arrangements meant to be purely transactional. You think of her in the earliest days, before she knew what the future would ask of her. You can almost see her, radiant with relief, the thrill of being chosen sparking in her chest, like a struck match. Maybe it started simply, Dinners that went late, phone calls that stretched into dawn, a series of small gestures that blurred the lines between convenience and something gentler. Was it love? Or did she only hope it might become love in time? You suspect even she wouldn't know for sure. You cross back to the living room, your steps soft on the carpet, and settle into the corner of the wide sofa. Here is where she must have waited for him to arrive, trying to slow her heartbeat so she wouldn't look too eager. Here is where she perched, phone in hand, rehearsing messages she would never send. Because no matter how carefully the terms were set, no expectations, no promises, no claims, hearts have a way of complicating contracts. You imagine how it happened. Perhaps he showed up one evening looking exhausted, his face a mask of something like regret. Maybe he sat here beside her, close enough that she could smell the faint cologne on his shirt. And maybe, in some unguarded moment, he let slip something she wasn't meant to hear, a confession, a vulnerability, the smallest suggestion that she mattered to him in ways neither of them could name. That was all it took, one softness, and the arrangement changed shape. She began to hope. You recall how in the Qing dynasty the emperor's concubines were not supposed to form attachments. Their value was in their usefulness, their beauty, their ability to remain discreet. And yet, again and again, affection grew in the cracks of duty, brittle and dangerous as frost on a roof tile. The same story repeats itself now, in penthouses and hotel suites and hidden apartments all over the world. Because it is impossible, you realize, to spend so many hours in someone's company and feel nothing. Even when love is not the point, even when you both swear it isn't love, there is always the possibility that it will appear anyway, uninvited. You picture her face, turned toward him in the dim light, searching for signs that her feelings were safe to name. Did he ever look at her in that way that says, "You are more than what you provide me"? Did she ever let herself believe it? You walk over to the side table and run your finger along the edge of a photograph, turned face down as if to spare her the pain of remembering when things felt simpler. Maybe this picture once sat proudly on the dresser, a small declaration of something real, but over time the reality proved too fragile to leave in sight. This is the hidden cost of arrangements that pretend to be uncomplicated. The collision of affection with pragmatism, the impossible question, if he cares for me, why must I still prove my worth? You sit again, folding your hands in your lap, feeling the weight of this question settle in your chest, because it is easier to accept a purely transactional bond, one where you both know the rules. It is harder to admit that something softer has crept in. It is harder still to live in that tension, never sure how much of the tenderness is real and how much is habit. You remember reading about the poetess Veronica Franco, the Venetian courtesan, whose clients sometimes fell in love with her words. Even then, she wrote of the confusion that followed. How can a man claim to adore you but still measure your worth in coin? You glance around this immaculate space and wonder how many evenings she asked herself the same question. How many times she almost demanded an answer, but swallowed the words, because she couldn't risk losing everything. And perhaps he cared for her in his own way. Perhaps he believed the gifts and gestures were proof enough. Perhaps he told himself that his affection was obvious, that it needed no declaration, but you know better. You've seen the hidden notes, the cautious lists, the restless silences. In this hush, you can feel the ache of love never fully spoken, the sorrow of needing more than someone is willing to give. You rise, brushing imaginary dust from your sleeves, and feel your heart squeeze as you imagine her here, night after night, rehearsing her gratitude, concealing her hope, trying to keep her balance on the thin line between affection and dependence. And in this moment, you understand something she has always known, that it is possible to be both cherished and disposable. That love, when it grows in a place like this, is never safe, but it is real all the same. And perhaps that is why, for all its contradictions, this life holds her fast. Because even in the gilded cage, even in the hush of an arrangement defined by caution, the heart still wants what it wants. You stand in the doorway one last time, feeling the soft ache of her hope in your own chest, and you realize that love is the most complicated gift of all, because it asks you to trust what you can never fully prove, to believe in what can be withdrawn without warning. And as you turn away, you know she will keep hoping, keep pretending, keep loving in her own quiet way. Because hearts are stubborn, and affection grows where it will, no matter. Your footsteps slow, as though you're reluctant to leave this space where the past and the present seem to blur. Because even as you try to convince yourself that this life is modern, progressive, unrecognizable from what came before, you can feel the echoes of something far older, echoes of ancient harems, Ottoman seraglios, imperial concubine quarters, places where women were housed in luxury, but always at someone else's pleasure. You trace your hand along the wall, as if you might find carvings hidden beneath the white paint. Inscriptions in Persian, Chinese, Italian, each language telling the same story. You are valuable, but never free. You close your eyes, letting your mind conjure them. The Sultan's favorites, swathed in gauze and gold, their hair perfumed, their smiles trained to be both inviting and demure. The Ming concubines with their lacquered nails and eyes rimmed in kohl, moving in quiet processions past eunuchs who kept them both safe and confined. The courtesans of Renaissance Italy, carried through back alleys in curtained litters so no respectable wife would see them and remember her own precarious standing. You open your eyes, and it's all here, in this silent penthouse. The same soft prison, the same flickering power, the same tension between indulgence and disposability. You drift into the living room and pause before the panoramic windows. The skyline is a mosaic of ambition, towers thrusting skyward, glass facades reflecting thousands of private dramas. Somewhere out there, perhaps in an apartment just like this one, another woman paces the floor, her life suspended in the same delicate arrangement. And you can almost hear the unbroken line of voices, women across centuries speaking to each other in the language of compromise and hope. I am here because it is safer to be kept than to be alone. I am here because I was chosen. I am here because this is the closest I have ever come to security. I am here because I have learned how to be both necessary and replaceable. Their stories converge here. In this single room, it is not just her story. It is the story of every woman who has traded the right to her own name for the certainty of survival. You remember a detail from the Ottoman harem, how favored concubines were often renamed by the Sultan, their birth identities erased in exchange for a new life. The act was meant to mark their elevation in status, but it also severed them from whatever freedom they might have known. To be renamed is to be remade in someone else's image. And you think about all the little renamings that happen here: assistant, friend, special guest, private companion, each title a disguise for the same dynamic, a polite fiction that makes the arrangement easier to swallow. You cross to the shelves where her books are lined in perfect rows, a novel set in ancient Persia, a memoir of an actress who never quite escaped her benefactors, a volume of essays about love and power. You pull one free and leaf through it, feeling how her curiosity has led her to stories she's not sure she wants to see too clearly. Perhaps she reads them for comfort. Perhaps she's looking for proof that other women have survived what she is living, that she is not the first, nor will she be the last. And as you replace the book, you sense the truth she must have realized long ago, that this life is not a fluke or an innovation. It is an inheritance, a pattern older than any skyscraper, more persistent than any moral judgment. You imagine her sitting here late at night, tea cooling in her cup, trying to decide if knowing that history is reassuring or suffocating. Because if it's always been this way, perhaps it will never change. Perhaps the world will never stop offering this same impossible bargain. Let me keep you safe, and in exchange, you will give up the right to your own ending. You close your eyes again, listening for the ghostly chorus of all those predecessors. You hear the envy, the sorrow, the acceptance. You hear the small rebellions, women who tucked away coins, women who wrote their stories down in hidden diaries, women who dared to ask for something more. And you understand, maybe for the first time, that what she is doing here is both ancient and quietly radical, because she is trying to hold both truths in her hands, that she is cherished and owned, protected and contained, lucky and trapped. You open your eyes and look around the room, seeing it now as a palimpsest, layer after layer of stories etched on every surface, the present shimmering over the past like a thin veneer, never quite hiding what came before. This is not just an apartment, it is an echo chamber, a place where every compliment carries the memory of 1,000 women, praised before her, every promise trailing the ghosts of 1,000 broken vows. You feel the chill of history settling over your shoulders, but you also feel something else, the slow burn of admiration. Because even in this gilded lineage, even in this softest prison, she has found a way to keep part of herself intact. You turn, taking in the final sweep of the room, and you think she is not the first, but perhaps she will be among the few who find a way to step into the daylight with her own name still on her tongue. And as you walk to the doorway, you carry with you the echo of all those ancient harems, and the quiet conviction that every time a woman remembers she has a self beyond the arrangement, with your hand on the doorframe, feeling the hush of the apartment gather around you, heavy with all the unspoken things. Here, in this last quiet moment, you sense the full cost of being kept, the price that cannot be measured in jewelry or rent payments or envy. You take one last look at the life she has built in this gilded space, the immaculate kitchen, the curated bookshelves, the perfume bottles lined up like little soldiers, each one masking something raw and unfinished beneath, and you feel it in your chest, that deep and unsettling understanding. All of this can be gone in a single breath. The cost of being kept is not just the risk of losing the comforts you've come to depend on. It's the slow erosion of your own certainty, the way you wake up one morning and realize you don't know where the arrangement ends and you begin. You walk into the bedroom and sit at the vanity, staring at your reflection in the flawless mirror. For a moment you pretend you are her. You try on her life like a gown that almost fits. You feel the soft seduction of security, the steady drip of validation. You feel the rush of being chosen and the equal opposite ache of knowing you are only chosen so long as you remain useful. And you think about all the ways the world conspires to convince you this is enough. The articles praising your empowerment, the strangers who admire your style, the polite silences of those who don't quite know what to say, the quiet envy of women who suspect you have solved a problem they still wrestle with every day. But you also think of the loneliness, how it clings to everything, no matter how beautifully lit or tastefully furnished, the way it seeps into your bones, a constant reminder that the person who claims to adore you also needs you to remain a little bit less demanding, less complicated, less real. You close your eyes and picture her in this same chair, wiping her makeup away at the end of the night, the illusion dissolving in the dim light. Perhaps she leans forward and studies the face beneath the foundation, searching for the woman she was before she signed on to this arrangement. Perhaps she wonders if she could still find her if she tried. You stand, crossing to the window, and rest your hand against the glass. Below, the city stretches away in 1,000 pinpricks of light. So many lives unfolding at once, each one carrying its own compromises. You think of all the other rooms like this, hidden away behind tinted glass and private elevators, each one a little kingdom of secrecy and dependence, and you realize the cost of being kept is not just what you surrender today, it's what you never allow yourself to imagine for tomorrow. The way you begin to shrink your own dreams to fit inside the space you've been given, the way you teach yourself not to want too much, not to ask too often, not to hope too loudly. You step back, letting your palm fall to your side. This place is beautiful, yes, but it is also an argument against believing that beauty alone can save you. You remember reading that in the imperial harems of the Ottoman Empire, some women kept journals in secret, tiny books hidden in folds of silk. They would write about their days, who visited, what gifts were given, which alliances were made, but in the margins they also recorded their small rebellions, the moment they allowed themselves to love, the day they dared to feel resentment, the nights when they dreamed of escape. And standing here, you wonder what her margins would say. You suspect they are full of the same quiet truths, that she is grateful, that she is exhausted, that she is braver than anyone will ever know, because this is the final, inescapable cost of being kept. It forces you to live in a constant negotiation with yourself. You must balance gratitude against resentment, comfort against fear, affection against the knowledge that it could all be taken away. You must hold your own heart gently, knowing it is both your greatest asset and your most dangerous liability. And even as you pity her, you also feel the smallest flicker of awe, because it takes a particular kind of courage to survive here, to keep showing up, to keep performing, to keep hoping for something softer than what the world has offered so far. You turn from the window, the hush of the apartment gathering behind you like a sigh. This is not a place you can stay, but it is a place you will remember, because it has shown you the cost of comfort, the hunger beneath the envy, the quiet bravery of a woman who dares to live inside the arrangement and still call herself her own. And as you walk toward the door, you know you will carry that memory with you, an uneasy, necessary reminder that even in the most gilded cage, the heart keeps beating, that it will always look around this quiet apartment, letting your gaze soften over each object, the velvet cushions, the glass vases, the slim folders of contracts hidden in drawers. All these things are evidence, not just of a life arranged, but of a life endured. And now, as the night deepens outside and the city dims to a hush, you let yourself slow. The questions you've carried, would you trade places? Could you stand it? Begin to loosen their grip, because no matter how you answered them, you have walked this path tonight in imagination, and that is enough. Here in the hush, you feel something uncoil, a recognition that we all build arrangements of some kind, some compromise between security and freedom. For her, the price is written in every luxurious detail. For you, it may be different, but it is no less real. Breathe in, slowly, and let that understanding settle. Let the edges soften and the judgments fade. You have witnessed her life without flinching. You have seen the beauty and the ache, the envy and the pity, the tenderness that insists on sprouting, even in the most conditional love. Tonight, you can set it down. You can release the need to decide whether her choices were right or wrong. You can simply honor the fact that she survived them, that she woke each day and found some small corner of herself to protect. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath deepen. Let your thoughts quiet like the lights going out one by one in the towers outside. And as you drift away, carry with you the small, fierce truth that the heart, no matter how carefully contained, will always find its own secret shape. Sweet dreams.